What's going on, guys? LA Cool J back with a new video, and boom, it's Spears, a very much anticipated video that everybody's been asking for. We're gonna go and jump. This video might be a little bit longer because Spears has so many options and utility. Good for solo ganking, group ganking, you know, just PvP in general. It's great for PvE. There's just so many things you can do with Spears. Let's get right into it, boys. Okay, so your first Q ability is called Lunging Strike. Now this is a stabbing ability and it's targetable. Now you target where you want to go and you stab all enemies in front of you and you do a really good chunk amount of damage. Here's the cool part. So you slow them for 10% for 6 seconds, and then each enemy that you hit, you stack up what's called a Spirit Spear. Now Spirit Spear is your stacking abilities on this class. You know, like how each class has, like, you know, stacking abilities where you get 3 stacks, you do more damage. Well, this one, the 3 stacking abilities is called Spirit Spear. Now, for each enemy that you hit with your Lunging Strike, you get 1 stack of Spirit Spear. Now, when you hold these 3 stacks, it increases your normal attack damage by 35% for 8 seconds. Now, that's really strong. Like, your just regular auto attacks are increased by 35% damage. That's really strong. Okay, so the next Q ability is called Spirit Spear. Now this is a self buff that you can cast on yourself, and it can stack up to 3 times. And when you have it stacked up 3 times, it increases your normal attack range by 30%. It also increases your damage, your normal attack damage, by 35% for 8 seconds. Like I said, it stacks up 3 times. Now this is pretty cool because when you can have your stacks on yourself, when you get up to 2 stacks, you can shoot your Q abilities, your auto attacks, at range. So it makes you almost like a little range DPS, which is cool because this is a melee DPS, but it gives you an option be able to stay away from the fight a little bit and be able to cast some damage. Now here's the cool thing about this. Like I said, that's just rad that you can be able to be a range DPS while being melee. But also, if you have 3 stacks up and you reapply your 3rd stack, let's say your stacks are about to run out, you will take an additional 12% energy hit. So keep an eye on that. Make sure you don't run out of energy. It does have a downside. It doesn't slow the target when you hit them. So Lunging Strike slows them, allows you to catch up, and then Spirit Spear allows you to be able to do range DPS. So play with them and see which one works for you. Okay, so your first W ability is called Forest of Spears. Now this is the iconic spear ability. You sit back and then you jab your spear 8 times in an AoE cone in front of you, doing massive amounts of DPS to everybody that's in front of it. Very strong AoE DPS ability that you're going to be using for pretty much like when you're fame farming and stuff like that. And it's also really good for solo too. Okay, so your next W ability is called Inner Focus. Now this was really cool because it was used in GBGs back in the day. It's still really strong actually. Basically it's a 2-second channel, and then when the 2-second channel is done, your damage is increased by 4%, your crowd control is increased by 4%, and your movement speed is increased by 8 seconds. And this can stack up to 10 times, so if you just keep channeling, you know, channeling. And your Inner Focus will last for 6 seconds. I don't use Inner Focus that much, but you can definitely see that it has a lot of potential with the damage increase, the crowd control increase, and the speed increase. This is used, so I would use this for ganking and stuff like that until you're able to unlock Crippled. So this would be your #1 ganking ability until you can unlock the ability Crippled. Okay, so speaking of cripples, this is your next W ability. Now cripple is really strong for PvP and ganking and stuff like that. So basically it's a buff. You put it on yourself and then you auto attack somebody and then you cripple them. Now what it does, it deals a massive amounts of damage. It slows them by 15% for 10 seconds. And here's the cool part. If you see that the target has, like, let's say you're doing a war bow and they have like assassin jacket and, you know, soldier boots with wanderlust, you see them pop their wanderlust, go ahead and then hit them with the cripple, and then it will purge the cripple off. It will purge the wanderlust off of them, and then it'll give you a movement increase buff by 50% for 5 seconds. So they lose their boots ability, you still have yours, and you get a 50% movement increase for 5 seconds while they're also slowed by 15% for 10 seconds. Okay, so the next ability here is the last ability on your W tree. It's called Deflecting Spin. It just looks badass. Like, this ability just looks cool. Anyway, so you spin your weapon as a shield for 4 seconds, and while you're channeling it, your resistance increased by 166, and that does scale with, you know, like your masteries. And you reflect 80% of the incoming damage. And then also while this is happening, you restore energy. So 6 energy for 0.5 seconds. For every 0.5 seconds, and you know you channel it for 4 seconds. So this is a really cool ability. It's like a nice little, like, tankiness, I guess you could say. So like if somebody's like, if you don't have any defensives up and somebody's throwing a lot of damage at you, you start spinning this. 1, your resistance is increased. You reflect 80% of the damage coming in, so you're only going to take 20% of the damage, which can save your life. And then 3, You also get energy back, which is awesome. It's just like a little bonus. So you know you're tanky, you're reflecting damage, and you're getting energy back. Definitely a win-win. I really do enjoy this ability. Okay, so the first spear we're going to go over is a non-artifact one-handed spear, just the regular spear that you get whenever you're leveling up spear. The ability is called Reckless Charge. Now, this works just like a Bloodletter does, how it's kind of like a dash, but this ability has a little bit more going on with it. So when you dash to the target, it knocks all enemies in the air, and what that does is it incapacitates them, so it's basically like a stun for 0.5 seconds. And it also interrupts casting and stuff like that. But if you have your 3 stacks up, and you dash through them, it does a massive amounts of damage. Now you see this used a lot in GVGs. Well, it was used in GVGs. Logic used it a lot in GVGs. Used a lot in open world, you know, fame farming, PvP and stuff like that as well. This is a really strong weapon, and like I said, when you have your masteries and specs into it, that dash is really disgusting, and it dashes through all enemies and just does a massive amounts of damage, and also basically stuns them as well. It's a knockup. Okay, so the next weapon here is going to be called Glaive. Now, Glaive was the original OG ganking spear back when the game launched, because it has an ability called Fling. So this ability right here, you take a target wherever you want. It's a single target, and you fling them behind you. And then it also does damage depending on, like I said, how many stacks of Spirit Spear you have. So if you have 3 stacks of Spirit Spear, you're going to do maximum damage, obviously. The most popular build with that would be you would have your Spirit Spear ability on your Q, get 3 stacks, and then you would fling them behind you, and then you would hit them with the Forest of Spears. That's the wombo combo that everybody used. This is an extremely strong ability, and once again, obviously, when you use this ability and you have it consumes all the stacks that you have. This is a really strong ability for ganking and just fun. I mean, you can even fame farm with it, stuff like that. It's just this is a really fun weapon to use, and I advise everybody just give it a shot and have some fun with it. But Glaive, the original OG ganking weapon in Albion. Okay, so the next spear is called Pike. This is my favorite spear in Albion. Definitely this and Trinity Spear. Those are my 2 favorite spears in Albion. The ability here on Pike is called Rooting Smash. It's a single target root ability that you root the target down for 5 seconds. Now, also it deals additional damage depending on how many stacks of the Spirit Spear that you have. Pike is really strong because it's a good weapon for just soloing out in the open world when you're solo fame farming. Extremely strong for ganking and PvP and stuff like that. Because you can hit them with your Rooting Smash, and then once your Rooting Smash is done, after they're done being rooted, hit them with a cripple and they're locked down again. You literally just lock this person down for like ever, it's gonna seem like to them, and then that allows you or your team to be able to capitalize on them and knock them out. Pike, amazing weapon in Albion. So going on to the first artifact weapon that we have here, it's going to be called the Spirit Hunter, and this was also, so I guess you guys can see what's going on here. Spears were, when the game first launched, very good for ganking. They had a lot of catch, they had a lot of really cool mechanics and stuff like that. So Spirit Hunter has an ability right here called Harpoon. Now Harpoon is a targeted ability that you shoot you basically just throw your spear at like wherever you targeted the location at, and then it grabs them and then it pulls the enemy into you. This is a single target, and now this doesn't do damage depending on your spirit charges. Depending on how long the target is rooted for. So if you have 3 stacks to your spirit charge, you basically root them for 6 seconds. That's really strong. So you shoot your harpoon, you pull them to you, they're rooted for 6 seconds. You and your team are doing damage, or just you, whoever, and then when that harpoon root is done, then hit them with the cripple, and then they're just slowed again. I mean, it's just so much CC potential with all the spear weapons. But don't get me wrong, spears aren't just for ganking, they do a lot of DPS as well. But that's why I say, when people are asking me like what melee class should they start with, I always say spears, because spears have a really good, just versatile toolkit. Okay, so the next spear here on the artifact is going to be a one-handed spear. It's called the Herion Spear. Now this spear is probably one of the most popular spears right now, because your E ability is called Spear Throw, and it's the same thing as the other spears that has target abilities. You target it wherever you want and you throw your spear, and on impact, when it hits a target on impact, it's going to, in a 4 meter radius, stun everybody, all enemies in that impact, and it deals like a pretty big chunk of damage too. And this is really strong because it stuns them for about 3 seconds. So if you stun them, you can also hit them with the Forest of Spears, or just, you know, your friends come in with their big baller DPS or whatever. This spear is kind of expensive though, because it's being used a lot, but it's a really strong artifact weapon, and Herion Spear just carries on with the rest of them. You know, it's good for PvP, PvE, and ganking. Okay, so the last spear here is called the Trinity Spear, It's got just so much flash to it. It's got so much tenacity. It's just a really fun spear to use. So the ability here on your E is going to be called Spectral Trident. Now it's a target ability that you put on the ground, and after you put it down, it's like a few seconds. You jump in the air, and then you slam down the spear. Now when you slam it down, all enemies in a 3 meteor radius are rooted for 5 seconds, and they take a pretty big chunk of damage. Now after that happens, it leaves a magical aura on the ground. It's like this teal color. Now all enemies, and it's an 8 meteor radius of that aura. Now it lasts for 6 seconds. Now all of your allies, well, up to 5 allies in that circle, are going to have their attack speed increased by 100%. That is crazy. And then their movement speed is increased by 50%. And also, if there's anybody that's playing any kind of like mage, their casting speed is increased by 30%. Now this is just an extremely strong weapon. It's really fun to use. It's used in Hellgates, fame farming, a lot of different ways like that. But there's nothing more satisfying than when you see a group of enemies like off in the distance grouped up and you're PvPing or you're even ganking, and you run and you slam your spear in them and just root them. It's just so satisfying. Trinity Spear is really fun to play, and it has a lot of really cool utility buffs for your party and yourself. Alright guys, let's go ahead and jump into gear real fast. Let's go through the helmets first. So the first helmet that I truly believe is one of the strongest helmets for spears is going to be Stalker Hood. Now Stalker Hood has an ability called Mortal Agony. Now Mortal Agony is you wait till your target gets below target or targets. It hits multiple people. Wait till they get below 50% health and you cast it. It hits everybody in a 6 meteor radius around you, and it lowers the resistance by a lot. And then what that allows you to do is to be able to deal more damage. You and your party can deal more damage. Okay, so the next helmet we're going to talk about is called the Guardian Helmet. Now the Guardian Helmet has a really cool ability called Emergency Heal. Now Emergency Heal heals you for 10% of your health, you and 4 allies around you, but it also removes any kind of stacks, like if there's a curse stacking on you or any kind of fire, any kind of damage over time, it removes that as well. It's a really strong heal, and it's also a really strong utility to cleanse off those negative effects. Also, I use the ability here called Authority. Now that gives you a 5% increase to all your CC duration. So anything that you have on you, any spear that you have that has a CC ability, it's going to increase that duration by 5%. This is a really strong helmet. The plate helmet, it just has so much utility, and I advise everybody to level it up. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on to the chest. Now my favorite chest for soloing, like fame farming, and also a little bit of solo PvP, the Hellion Jacket. The Hellion Jacket is an artifact leather jacket. Now what this does has an ability called Life Steal Aura. Now in a 7 meteor radius around yourself, after you cast it, you're going to steal health from enemies in there, and then you're also going to do 52 damage over time per second to them. Now this is really cool because like the lower health you have, the more healing that you get. So if you're at high health, you're only gonna get like maybe like 19 tick or something like that. But if you're low, like 30% or something like that, you're gonna get like 63 tick and just heal yourself all the way back up. And like I said, also you're healing yourself and doing damage, so it's a nice little like combo of like AoE damage and AoE healing to yourself. Okay, so the next chest ability that's very popular among spears is going to be called the Soldier Armor. Now the Soldier Armor is a plate armor, and it has an ability called Fury. Now what Fury does is you cast it on yourself, and then it can stack up to 10 times. Now the more damage that you take, it's when it stacks. So like every time you take damage, it stacks. So you take damage from mob 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it gets up to 10. Now when you have 10 stacks, you can unleash a fury amount of damage. That's why a lot of people use it. They basically pop this, run into a bunch of enemies or mobs, and then they stack up the damage, turn around, drop their E, or drop a force of spears. It's really cool because it's a plate armor, so it gives you a little bit more tankiness, and it also has the ability right here, Authority, which also can increase your CC duration. It's a very strong chest ability that can put out a lot of damage and also make you a little bit more bruiser, make you a frontline bruiser melee DPS. Okay, so moving on to boots. You can use any boots that you want. I just default everything to assassin boots because assassin boots have so much utility. You have a refreshing sprint, so when you're fame farming or solo fame farming, you get your cooldowns faster. You have a dodge roll in case you counter like a legendary boss or anything like that. And you also have just a regular run, which is just really long run, which is really good. And then it's a leather boot. It's so much utility, and I just advise everybody to obviously level up this. Okay, moving on to a couple of builds here. This build right here is going to be really strong for a fame farm or either a hardcore expedition. You're going to have the Druid Cow to drop down mana for you and everybody in your party so they can have more energy. You're going to have the Royal Jacket. Now the Royal Jacket has an ability called Royal Banner. Now what Royal Banner does is it reduces all your cooldowns of you and up to 5 allies. Inside of it also increases their attack speed and all that kind of stuff like that, but nobody really uses it for that. They use it for basically you pull a bunch of mobs, drop the brimstones, whatever, and then you pop your royal banner, and you and the party get all their cooldowns reduced, and then by the time you get to the next mob, you should have all your cooldowns back up to be able to do it again. Very strong. I love royal jacket. Also here, I like the Judicator boots, because Judicator boots has an ability called an elbow smash. Now elbow smash, you just target it wherever you want, and then you just hit the ground, and boom, you smash, boom, knock all enemies up in the air, and you interrupt casting and all that kind of stuff. So if, like, let's say you're fame farming and then there's ability coming out that's really strong hitting, or if you're out in the PvP scenario, nobody can interrupt it, you can interrupt it. And since you're melee, it allows you to get back into the fight and do more damage, or you can actually use this as a defensive by fleeing as well. This is a really strong build here. You would want to pair it with the Morgana Cape. Morgana Cape, whenever you pop an E, it has an ability that increases your attack speed and all that kind of stuff like that. It's really strong. I just use the Undead Cape defaulting for when I'm solo fame farming and stuff like that. It allows me to get myself out of sticky situations. You can also use the Grave Guard and Cleric Robe Cheese, where basically you pop your Everlasting Spirit on your Cleric Robe, get your Grave Guard, and you heal yourself all the way up. As far as food goes, pork omelets are always the best way to go, or any kind of omelets, but pork omelets, because it reduces your cooldowns, and that's really strong. Or you can use a DPS food like a stew or something like that. Poisons are gonna, I'm sorry, your this slot will be anything that you want it to be. Poisons, resistance pots, gig pots, whatever you want. Okay, offhands, you can use the torch. The torch is awesome because it's a cooldown modifier and attack speed bonus. Extremely awesome, not very expensive. You can also use a shield if you want to be a little bit more tanky. That way, if you're out soloing and you feel like you're taking a lot of damage, you can use a shield and you won't take as much damage. Also, another good offhand would be the Mist Caller. Mist Caller is going to be a cooldown modifier, which is not too bad, but I would recommend using, if you're going to use the Mist Caller, might as well just use a torch, because you get a cooldown modifier and an attack speed bonus, which is extremely strong. And then you can also use a Taproot. Now, Taproot is just going to make you just really freaking strong. You get more hit points and your healing receive bonus and stuff like that, and health regen, so that's really strong. But honestly, out of all of these, either a shield or a torch would be the best way to go. Alright guys, that's the end of the guide here. Thank you so much for sticking around. Let me know if you have any questions about this. Spears is very versatile. Like I said, you can do a lot of PvP with it, you can do a lot of solo fame farm with it, you can do pretty much anything with spears. That's why I recommend newer players to, start with spears as a melee, because there's nothing, spears will never get nerfed. They're always going to be strong, and they're always going to be meta some way or another. If you guys have any more questions or anything about spears, if I didn't go over something in detail, throw it in the comments below. As always, hit up my Discord or on my Twitch. And I don't know what weapon we're going to do next, boys. I'm going to put a straw poll in my Discord. So then jump on over there, and then we'll start deciding on what the next weapon is going to be. Alright guys, this is the Spear Guy. Thank you guys so much, and I'll see you guys around. Peace.